Back to CryptosRUs. I am George. Welcome to tonight's stream. And the topic is DeFi. Yes, DeFi explosion. It's real. It's been happening not only today, but for the last few months. And I do believe it's going to get much, much bigger. What we're seeing now is really the beginning. And I think all crypto holders, Bitcoin holders, everyone needs to pay attention because DeFi is real. And I do believe there's still a lot of people out there that is very cautious, suspicious, not trustworthy, or believes DeFi is not trustworthy. And you know what? I had an epiphany today. I was creating a video newsletter for my Patreon members. I really thought about it, and I'm going to share a macro view of DeFi, regular finance, and make the comparison. And I think afterwards, you guys will understand where I'm coming from, why I think it's going to go much, much higher. Also, there is something very interesting said by Michael Saylor. So I do want to show you this short clip and give you an update on Bitcoin and possibly more selling from F2 pool, which is why Bitcoin is now below 37,000 again. Okay, so that's pretty much gist of what I'm going to be talking about. Just so you know, I do have someone now that's helping me create timestamps. So I did put it on my earlier video from today. I plan on putting it for this video too. So for some of you guys that always, been begging for timestamps, it is coming. So I appreciate Matt for helping me with that. But let's get started. Those of you guys that's in the channel already, welcome. Make sure you hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and let's do this. Let's do this. All right, let me switch my screen here. So as you can see right now, the marketplace is booming. 1.1 trillion in market cap, right? This is enormous. Bitcoin dominance continues to go down 61%. 61%, man. I mean, Bitcoin has always been leading the pack, right? Leading the party, leading the charge. And whenever Bitcoin falls or Bitcoin pumps, usually BTC dominance goes up both ways. And those of us that lived through crypto winter, we know that's the case, right? Bitcoin has a bad day, everything sells off. Bitcoin has a good day, everything sells off. Sometimes it just doesn't seem fair and it doesn't make any sense to hold altcoins at times. But the last few months have really changed. The last 6 months, 3 months, last month, we have seen an explosion of altcoins, and any altcoin that's really has anything to do with DeFi, right? And I've been talking about a few of them with you guys. Like I said, I've been doing a lot more research on them, figuring out all the new ones that have potential, the ones that really can really explode from where they are, right? And it's quite fascinating because this space is growing so fast. It's really, really fast. Everyone is trying to come out to be on top, become the big dogs of what they do, and it's really, really fascinating. But let me get to this big idea, this big macro picture that really kind of changed the way I think about DeFi, which is why I think what we're seeing now is only the beginning, and things are going to get a lot bigger. The pumps will be bigger, the market cap will be bigger, the prices will be bigger, because despite the fact that, you look at something like Aave and Uniswap, both are nearing 6 billion, which seems like, man, they're very, very high, right? They're just too high. I can't simply get in. I think this is only the beginning, and everything else that's following it, I think this is going to be a multiplier. They're going to get exponentially bigger because of what's coming. All right, so before I get into the list and answer questions and also talk about Bitcoin, let me give you this bigger macro picture that I'm talking about. So I started looking at DeFi Pulse, and I started thinking about, okay, the total locked-in value continues to go up. You could see that since December, where it was at only 12 billion, it has climbed up to over 28 billion, around 29 billion. within a very, very short amount of time, almost triple within the last 2 months, right? So obviously it's exploding in a big way. But you think about it, why is it exploding? Well, because there's many aspects to DeFi, right? DeFi is not just one thing. It's many, many things. It can include decentralized changes, DEXs. It can include lenders, stakers, liquidity pools, derivatives, synthetic token minting. There's just so much that's coming out, right? But overall, the total value, the liquidity of everything that's out there, at least according to DeFi Pulse, the projects they track, is about $30 billion. So $30 billion, that may seem like a lot, but here's the thing. You look at the total market cap, which is over $1.1 trillion. What is 30 billion out of 1.1 trillion? It's nothing. It's nothing. It's less than 3%. It's like 2.5%. So you think about out of the entire market cap, all the crypto, the 8,000 crypto, right? And you look at all the money that's in, very, very, very little is in DeFi right now. As big as you think big DeFi is, there's actually very, very little liquidity in there, right? And on CoinMarketCap, you can also sort the projects by DeFi. So total DeFi crypto market is about 51 billion. Actually, it's less than that because they categorize projects like Chainlink as DeFi. Chainlink is not a DeFi project. It's not solely. It's used for many, many things. So it's not fair to even include Chainlink, which is already $10 billion. So if you subtract off Chainlink, that's about 41, let's just round down to $40 billion, right? So again, $40 billion is very, very little, less than 5% of the overall market cap. So even if you count the market cap of all the DeFi coins, including all the liquidity locked in, that's still about only $70 billion out of $1.1 trillion. That's barely above 5%. That's about 6 or 7% of the entire market cap. Very, very small. Very small. Okay, so here, now let me show you. Let's look at traditional banks, right? What about centralized finance? Well, let's look at traditional banks. So according to companies' market cap, you know what? The largest banks in the world, this does not include Bitcoin and Ethereum, but the largest banks in the world, about 227 of them, adds up in terms of market cap, just their market value, is about $4 trillion, a little bit more than $4 trillion. And unfortunately, I can't break this down into US companies versus worldwide companies, but overall $4 trillion. So obviously a lot bigger than the DeFi companies overall, as it should be. But just take a look at these figures. According to this, the total assets just held by US banks alone adds up to $20 trillion. $20 trillion, right? So even if you took all of these companies, and they're not just US based, right? So it's actually a lot smaller. But even if you just use this number, that means the assets is 5 times as much as the market cap of the banks, right? But it's actually a lot more. It's more like 10 or 20 fold because again, this $4 trillion is banks worldwide. And this is just assets held by banks in the United States. Now, assets can include many different things. It can include real estate like mortgage, bonds, derivative stuff, futures, options, a whole lot of stuff that's out there. So some of it real, some of it is paper, right? So it just shows you the number of assets held by these banks is a multiplier of the market cap of the banks, right? And here's mind-boggling. So according to Wikipedia, if you look at just the top 100 banks of the world, so not the top 227, but just the top 100, in terms of their assets, adds up to $100 trillion. $100 trillion of assets. That's how much they have, right? So this is centralized finance. This is just the top 100. If you go top 200, I'm sure it's way more than that, but that's $100 trillion right there. And according to this, in terms of total assets in the entire world, at least up until 2018, was about $400 trillion, right? 400 trillion. So if you look at the banks, how much they own versus the total assets out there, it's enormous, enormous, right? So it's anywhere from 25 to 50% of the total assets in the world is owned by the biggest banks of this earth, right? So that made me think about DeFi, right? This whole thing with Wall Street bets, kind of opened the eyes of many people, right? Do we trust centralized banking? Do we trust the current system out there, right? And it makes a lot of people wonder, and this is the reason why a lot of people turn to Bitcoin in the first place, because distrust in central banks and governments and monetary policy and all that stuff, right? So you think about it, Bitcoin, crypto, right? Money, assets, I mean, it just all ties together. It all ties together. This is like the grander version, a grand vision of everything, right? So you think about, again, back to Wall Street bets, right? A lot of people are looking for decentralized finance, and which is DeFi. They're turning into it. That's why DeFi recently has been exploding, and a lot of exchanges have exploded with new user counts and stuff like that, right? But you look at, just look at even the total liquidity in the DeFi projects right now, just even versus the crypto market itself, is very, very low. Remember I said in terms of total assets versus the bank's market cap, there's at least a 5x multiplier, if not more. It's actually a lot more, but I'm just going to say 5x, right? But if you look at even the market cap of the DeFi, projects, 40 billion, and that's not even 1x. That's like 0.75x, right? So even if you went by that 5x multiplier, that would mean that this should be at $200 billion. So roughly 10x more, right? A little bit less than 10x, but you get the picture, right? So that's according to if it followed what I just showed you, but it could be a lot higher than that. If it's a 10x multiplier, this should be at a 400 billion market cap, right? So as you can see, right now, it's still very, very early. The projects are early. The total liquidity is early. And that's just compared to where the market cap is right now. Imagine when the market cap goes up to 2 trillion, 3 trillion, 4 trillion, 5 trillion, right? As Bitcoin leads the way and DeFi and altcoins start exploding up, the market cap gets higher, DeFi is going to get higher, and the total liquidity is going to get higher, which is why I think overall DeFi is still very undervalued and very, very early, very early. So despite the fact that we have a lot of leaders right now, right? I think I made this point this morning that some of these leaders could become the next, decentralized version of JP Morgan or Bank of America or whatever large bank out there is, because they're so tiny, so early. But as more and more people utilize them, say, hey, utilize them as a savings account that actually pays out interest, utilize them for loans, collateral loans, where you don't have to worry about credit checks and all that stuff, right? And utilize them for many other things, for trading, right? And also just liquidity. There's so much stuff that can still be utilized that most mainstream people don't use, and even crypto people don't use, quite honestly. But when they do, I think things are going to get much, much bigger. There's going to be a lot bigger explosion. That is why, after thinking about this from a macro, bigger level, I'm really excited. I'm really, really excited about DeFi. I think there's so much more room to grow, right? This morning or last night, I talked about, being more diversified. At least with my portfolio, I'm going to be more diversified. I think it's a good idea to be more diversified because there's a lot of altcoins that can stand on their own right now. And they are decoupling from Bitcoin, and they are doing really well, despite the fact there may be times where Bitcoin is weak, right? And I think DeFi plays a large role in that, a very large role in that. So that's what I want to share with you right off the bat, right? Because that's my kind of bigger picture of where DeFi could go, right? And I'm not throwing out some crazy numbers. I know a lot of people like to throw out like Uniswap at like $10 million or Ethereum at like $1 million. I'm not going to do that. But I'm trying to explain to you guys that there's just so much more that's coming. You know, so much more utility, function, more users, more liquidity. There's just so much more to this space. And like I said, if you think about Bitcoin and crypto and finance, you know, it all ties together, right? Because everything's spurred from us trying to get away from centralized banking, right? Bitcoin was created because of distrust in banks, in Wall Street, in governments, right? So again, that shows you that's getting us away from centralized finance. So this is a perfect harmony if you think about it, right? So that's what I want to lead with, right? And now I want to talk about a little bit about Bitcoin. And I know some people want to know an update about F2 Pool. So Bitcoin, you know, up and down. It was actually doing really well. After my stream this morning, Bitcoin climbed up all the way back up to 38,000, which was pretty much the same point as yesterday. Now, since then, it has become a little bit weaker, coming down a little bit, right? This morning stream, I said this is pretty healthy. Profit taking, you know, even though F2 Pool sold a little bit more, you know, it wasn't a big deal, right? And it was right because Bitcoin recovered right back up, right? And right now, seems like more of the same. However, I did check. I just brought this up right before the stream, and it does show that there is more selling coming from F2 Pool. So is this a coincidence, or are they taking advantage of the fact that Bitcoin is a little bit higher, right? Or their miners are? I don't know. We'll have to see. I did say I was going to pay attention to this. So tomorrow, if we do see an increase of selling, then we know what's happening. But if this is just like periodically, you do see a big sell. Oh, I'm sorry. I think you guys can't see that. But if we do see a periodic spike like this morning, there was a big sell of 837. Tonight, there was a sell of about 1,000, right? So those are spikes. But again, it could be anomalies, and we have to wait and see tomorrow, right? But just wanted to update you on this. Now, I am still getting questions like, why am I talking about F2 Pool? Why am I saying they can't sell? No, they can sell. I think a lot of the people that are commenting are frankly paid people by F2 Pool or bots that are programmed to do so. But I'm going to explain it again just in case you guys don't understand. Yes, there are mining pool. Yes, there's miners on there. They are free to sell whatever they want. But what we don't want is them to manipulate the market by price suppression, which they seem like they're able to do because they are selling, or they have been selling, a tremendous amount of Bitcoin right when Bitcoin was about to break into new highs, right? So you could see when Bitcoin was hovering about 40,000, a lot of selling. And then when Bitcoin came down to 30,000, a lot less selling. And then Bitcoin was going up again, a lot more selling, right? So now Bitcoin is climbing up, and you could see that, you know what, the selling increases again, right? So what we want to make sure is that there's no price suppression. They're not playing the markets, and they could play the markets by saying buying short futures, so they profit from Bitcoin's fall, and they could sell, which actually causes that to happen. That's manipulation, and that could be rinse and repeat all the time. We just want to make sure that is not happening. If it's not, and these are legitimate sells, then so be it. They can do whatever they want with their Bitcoins, right? But what we want to make sure is that there is no shady business going on. There's no shenanigans, and this is legit, right? And it was just really, really suspicious. First of all, Chung, the CEO, he's just being too cocky and cheeky about the whole thing, not really taking it seriously until recently. And also it's very suspicious that only F2 Pool's pool has such a mass exodus of BTC. No other pool had anything like this. So that's very, very suspicious, which is why I brought it up in the first place. But again, right, this could be a coincidence. So we'll have to see if this increased selling over here is just a coincidence because they want to take advantage of the situation because BTC is up, or it's something else. We'll have to see tomorrow, right? Now, lastly, for for you guys that are Michael Saylor fans, this is a very, very powerful interview that I don't think many of you guys have caught. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't, but he shares his story, how he turned $50 million, which is a lot of money ready, into $500 million. And this is his own personal assets. This is not MicroStrategy assets. So it shows you that Michael Saylor was already an insanely rich guy. But he got there by being a holder, by being an investor, not by being a trader. You know, a lot of people always argue you got to trade, time top and bottoms. I see him do interviews where people tell you like, oh, why don't you time it better and stuff like that. But Michael Saylor have seen this throughout his life. And he has accumulated a fortune and has become a billionaire through the simple strategy of buying and holding and not trying to time top or bottom, right? This is a really powerful message. I know this has nothing to do with DeFi, but I feel compelled that I have to play this for you guys because it's that good. So I'm going to play it. All right, I'm going to play it and listen to you guys, with you guys. And then afterwards, we're going to do Q&A and go from there. All right, I got that set. Let me get my thing set. I got to move my picture. Here we go.
My own money, I bought it. I bought it when everybody said, you're foolish to own Apple. You should diversify into all the other computer companies. What is this Facebook thing? You're foolish to own that. What is this Google thing? It's overvalued. It's overpriced. Well, I converted the 50 million into 500 million. When I wrote the mobile wave, the observation was software networks are dematerializing everything in the world. They're dematerializing money and identity and everything you can hold in your hand, the photograph. And so the conclusion of the mobile wave was the world's going to change. The networks, Google's an information network, Facebook's a social network, Apple's a mobile network, Amazon's a retail network. They're going to eat the world. Well, the conclusion is buy Apple, Amazon, Facebook, Google. I wrote the book. Nobody read the book. And you know, anybody could have done it. If you had bought any of those companies in the past decade, you couldn't lose money. So it made me conclude a couple of things. One thing, if you want to make money in the tech era, you find the dominant digital network, the one that's worth 100 billion, that's crushed everybody. You can't buy MySpace. You know, you might hit BlackBerry or MySpace or Yahoo, you know, or something like that. If you buy too soon, you might miss it. But after it's $100 billion and the market is decided, Apple's the winner, Google's the winner, Facebook's the winner, Amazon's the winner. And it was pretty obvious Amazon was the winner in 2013. Everybody on Wall Street said, what is this stupid company? They don't make any money. We don't buy into it. And they would sell you Amazon for $300. But you could have bought it. You could buy all those things and you would have got a 10x, 20x gain on it. And you just wait until the 99% of the world that disagrees with you, that's cynical and skeptical and ignorant, and they don't understand it and they're afraid of it, as it gradually dawns on them that Google's an information network, Facebook's a social network, Apple's a mobile network, Amazon's a retail network, Microsoft's an enterprise software network. When you finally figure it out, you're like, oh, these guys can serve up 1 billion people for a nickel. Their variable cost is zero. They've got overwhelming, crushing advantages. So, summary of the mobile wave. I had that experience. It made me very successful as a personal investor. My company didn't invest in it. 2020 came, and I swore to myself, if I ever saw this again, I wasn't going to write a book. I was going to buy as much of that thing as I could personally, as much of that thing as I could corporately, and then I was just going to tweet about it. I mean, in the early days of Bitcoin, Bitcoin's like an open source project. There's no company behind it. It's an emergent phenomena in cyberspace, you know. And as it emerged, the early days it was very uncertain and scary and complicated. And so, how will the IRS tax it? Will the government ban it? Will it be illegal to hold it? The early exchanges were failing. Mt. Gox failed. The early use cases were Silk Road. The early question of, is it a security or not, right? You went through all of these tests for Bitcoin. It could have been destroyed because it was banned. It could have been destroyed because it was hijacked by bad exchanges. It could have been destroyed because it was forked. Everybody said, well, either someone else is going to copy it or the government will ban it. Over the last 8 years, what happened is it was copied. It's the winner of the crypto wars. So how do you get comfortable with it? Well, after it's been attacked 6,500 times by clones and they've all failed, and when it emerged to be 95% of all of the proof of work networks, like 95% of all the monetary energy in the crypto asset space is on the Bitcoin network, then it's Facebook, it's not MySpace. So we had to watch it get to a point of maturity where it's seasoned. And we had to watch all of these bad exchanges failed, and all the bad actors failed, and we had to watch the development of a regulatory apparatus. So now you have KYC regulation on the exchanges in the U.S. You have clarity with regard to how it's taxed. You have clarity with regard to what it is and isn't. I think people are starting to understand it's not a currency. It's not a payment network. It's a bank in cyberspace that allows billions of people to store their money. It gives them a simple, straightforward, affordable, secure savings account for people that can't set up their own hedge fund and don't know and can't get into a hedge fund, and they just want to put their money in a bank. The politicians and the country has destroyed the savings account over the past 30 years. When I was a kid, you put your money in a savings account, get 5% interest, and everybody believed that the money was going to be more valuable in the future. You wouldn't lose your money. And that option's been deprived. And so Bitcoin has emerged from casino, gambling, scary, to the savings account or savings and loan at the end of the universe. And that's the journey of the 10 years. And that's why I could get excited about it in the year 2020.
All right. So a little long. He was trying to make a point at the beginning, but I mean that's a powerful video, and I think a lot of you guys will appreciate that, because he turned his 50 million into $500 million, right? Just with tech stocks, when no one believed it. Everyone told him he was crazy, right? But he saw it. He saw the future. He knew that Google was an online network. Amazon was a retail network. Microsoft is an enterprise network. Facebook is a social network. I mean, you saw the point, right? And now he's seeing Bitcoin being a monetary network, the leader of monetary network, right? So that is why he believes in it so much, and that's why he just has a mentality, buy and hold, and that's it. He doesn't need to trade because he knows it's going to go up, right? And whatever he put in already has more than doubled. So it's likely that he's going to see another 10x return just with Bitcoin. Now, the one point, and I don't want to put words in his mouth or correct him on what he has done, but here's the thing, though. He bought the Bitcoin that he bought, right, was rumored that I think it was confirmed. It was confirmed that it was from a centralized exchange, Coinbase, through their OTC market, right? So what could make it even better is that rather than go through a centralized financial institution like Coinbase, go through like a DEX, right? That would be the next evolution. That would be a big FU to the entire financial industry, right? But I know it's too early for that, especially with his kind of purchase. There's just not enough liquidity. If you try to do that, Bitcoin would literally jump to 100,000 overnight. But, you get my point, right? So right now, we still do have, even though they're crypto related, we still have a lot of centralized entities, right? But in the future, what we would like to see is have them be removed and everything governed by code with fairness, without corruption, right? Because even exchanges like Coinbase, always questions about why they're down all the time. There was insider trading stuff, rumors that was being investigated, and a whole lot of other stuff, right? So what would make the whole situation better is you just go decentralize everything. So I think to add on what Michael is feeling right now, which I think he will come to a conclusion later, is that Bitcoin, yes, is the dominant, by far, the dominant crypto. It basically makes everyone into a bank because now you have something that will basically hedge against inflation and go up over time. Yes, you have that component. But what about the other components? What if you did want to trade? Do you want to utilize a centralized trading service, or do you want to use a DEX, right? Obviously, the next logical thing is if you want to trade, go to a DEX. What about if you wanted to get a loan for your house or for your car? Do you really still want to utilize traditional systems where you got to go through a Toyota financial system or Honda financial system, or you could simply put down collateral, borrow against that, take that loan, and buy whatever car you want, or buy your house for that matter, right? With the decentralized version of mortgages and loans and so forth, right? So that's like the next evolution, right? That's why I think DeFi is so early right now. I'm talking about in the future, obviously, like we're nowhere close to there yet. Right now it's mostly trading and derivative trading and all that, but I think it's going to get there. And when it does, everything I mentioned before about, you know what, the centralized banks holding $100 trillion worth of assets, just the top 100. Think about when the top 100 DeFi companies hold $100 trillion worth of assets. Think about what's going to happen then. It's definitely going to be a shift, right, from centralized to decentralized finance. And that's huge. That's mind-boggling if you think about it, right? So I think that's the next evolution. So that's why I'm more excited than ever about DeFi. Not every DeFi. I'm not excited about like the pump and dumps or yield farming, all that. But DeFi is such a broad thing, and there's so much that is being developed right now. So many projects that are doing really well, and I'm really excited about them. But anyways, just want to share with you guys, right? Between Bitcoin, you know, there's a lot of Bitcoin Maximus out there. There's a lot of altcoin Maximus out there. I think it's time for a little bit of both. I think diversification is very, very important. It'll help you in the long run. It'll help you with some stability, with some store value, right? And also some that is very, 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 has high potential to become the next juggernauts, as you know, as some would say, in terms of the next decentralized JP Morgan or Bank of America or whatever, right? So yeah, that's kind of my point. All right, well, thanks for that super chat, Cameron. Man, that's a weird name, or I can't pronounce it, but thank you for that. And someone else that gave me a super chat earlier, and I apologize if I missed it because I was in the middle of my spiel. But anyways, I do see that a lot more people are tuning in as time goes on, so I appreciate that, right? Now it's time to do some Q&As, and you know what? I found some interesting projects I share with my Patreon members today, but I can share maybe one or two with you guys that I think has pretty good potential. But let me do Q&A with you guys first. Justin, you just don't want to give up on Loop Ring, right? Since DeFi is the topic, let's talk about Loop Ring again. How does this sound? DeFi 8x, Loop Ring DEX market share goes from 2% to 20%. Loop Ring goes 80x. Well, first of all, you have to explain why you think the market share is going to go from 2% to 20%. And in fact, Loop Ring's DEX is not even done. So I did do some research based on you hounding me about it. It is in beta. They even tell people to watch out. The liquidity is low. So there's no way Loop Ring's DEX is even at 2% market share. But let's just assume that somehow it is. If it goes up to 20%, that's roughly 10 times, right? So why would Loop Ring go up 80x? Unless everything else has exploded in such a big way that makes sense, right? But I mean, Loopring is a fine project, but they're really behind because all these dexes are already out, right? And they're not using any Loopring's protocol, so they're forced to come up with their own, right? Not to say that they can't become a big giant, but they have to hurry up and get their decks done and get things done, right? Ultimately, it comes down to users, liquidity, adoption, and they don't have much of that right now, right? Yeah, stop spamming. Stop spamming Engine. I see it. Engine is a fine project. Obviously, they're involved with the NFTs now, which is very, very hot indeed. And they got the first license to be able to offer it to games in Japan, so that's a big thing. And also, they have a layer scaling solution. They're involved with games, so Engine overall is a very, very nice project. Very nice project. I'm not a fan of Bancor. Not a fan of Bancor at all. I'm pumping Loopring. Look at the chart. That's probably why Justin asked, because it's already pumping. A lot of coins is pumping, right? So I'll go over some that happened really hot, some that I've covered, and I'll maybe share one or two that I haven't yet that I think has a lot of potential. Claudio, BNB, yes, BNB definitely doing well. And what's interesting about that is, right now, DeFi is congesting the Ethereum network like crazy, right? So these guys have to figure out what to do with a layer 2 solution or move off. And you know what? A lot of these new DeFi projects, they're being built on other chains like Binance Chain, which utilize BNB. And there's a lot of them that hasn't really exploded yet because people are not paying attention to them. That's where they could become huge as people transition off from Ethereum before they are able to scale. So I think BNB is a pretty good hold. And plus, it's like buying stocks into Binance itself. So Aave, obviously a big pump today. Uniswap, they're both about equal. These are obvious choices, right? Like Michael said, go with the big dog. Yes, they're not at 100 billion market cap, but Aave is definitely the big dog when it comes to staking, lending, all that good stuff. And Uniswap is the big dog when it comes to DEXs right now. Now, things could change still, but they are definitely the big dogs right now, and they have all the traction. Now, moving down, Synthetic is a DEX for synthetic things. So kind of interesting, but not my thing. I don't like synthetic things, but I realize that it's definitely necessary for some kind of trading. So you gotta put them high up on your list, right? But you don't have to. For me, it's just a neutral right now. I'm not that excited into it. Tandem, I'll look at. Well, VGX I talked a lot about already. HBAR, I don't know what that is, but I will look at it after I'm done with this. Now, another one that I just covered, I'm going to share with you guys, Compound. Compound is an amazing project. So they basically do what Aave does. They're a little bit different. They're more decentralized. Their governance is purely voted based on people that have comp, right? And they have a liquidity pools where you can stake. You could also borrow against, right? And Compound has a ton of liquidity. They're actually number 2 right behind Aave. So I think they're really undervalued at this point. Also, Coinbase has invested in them. So obviously, they have a lot of traction. So I like Compound a lot. So don't sleep on them. 2 billion versus 6 billion for Aave, right? So obviously there's some room to grow there. Super chat. Oh, okay. Well, if you want to spam your product, that's fine. But at least you gave a good super chat. Sushi is another one. Sushi, of course, is alternative to Aave. They are absolutely crushing it too with the liquidity with people that's on there. So these two projects, man, very, very, very nice. Now, VeChain is not a DEX. I like it a lot, but I'm not going to talk about it right now. UMA is for creation of synthetics. And again, kind of like synthetics, where it's like a DEX for synthetics. UMA helps DeFi projects come up with synthetic tokens, which is why it's so hot right now, because they're involved with DeFi, right? And that's why they have been pumping. So this is also an excellent project. ARU, can you refer me to crypto terminology? Like, what do you want to know? Just look it up. Just Google it. Justin, what you never explained. I didn't say you were trying to pump RRC, but it's probably pumping. But why do you think it's the future? Explain to me why you think it's the future. And talk about what happens when you default on a DeFi mortgage. You can't default on a DeFi mortgage. Really. It's just when you can't pay the interest, or if the underlying collateral collapses, then you have to put in more. So there's that danger there, right? But that's our version right now of a loan. Right now, there's loans that's based on collateral. But soon, and I actually found a project, very, very low cap, that offers uncollateral loans, right? That's more like a mortgage, where you're paying an interest, maybe a higher interest. So again, it's going to evolve from here. This is what we're seeing now is just the beginning. DeFi is going to evolve into something much bigger than what we can even imagine right now, right? Just like DeFi 3 years ago, no one thought about it. ETHLend at the time, which is now Aave, right? They were doing personal P2P loans. If you wanted a loan, try to find someone else, make terms, and bam, you get a loan. That was the extent of DeFi back then. And look at where DeFi went to now, right? So big, big difference. Going down the list, Terra, Elrond, even though these are not DeFi projects, I really like them. Just want to share with you guys. Celsius is kind of like a mini version of Aave, and Compound. So they're doing very well too. Going down the list, the graph is not really in DeFi, but they give DeFi projects the ability to create an API, which is very necessary. Yearn, they got hacked before. I heard they just got hacked again, so that's not good. But their market cap is still holding well, even though they've been hacked multiple times. So that's pretty amazing. Swissborg is almost like it's like a Swiss version of Voyager. So they have an app that basically allows you to buy and sell, and there's DeFi components to it, but it's not available for US customers, so I can't test it out, but it has been doing very well, just like Voyager, which I really like. Moving down the list, Voyager is of course there. Voyager is a really convenient app to buy, sell, stake, and pretty much do everything. Fantastic team. 1inch, I mentioned before, they're still relatively cheap, and they are a DEX aggregator right now. So if you're looking for the best way to trade, right, at the lowest price and with the most liquidity, 1inch provides that, and their interface is actually really, really easy. I missed some super chats. Okay. You guys are scrolling a little fast here. Okay. Slicewood, just bought some XRP, EOS, YAM, Tron, Doge, BDC, Dinosaur, Coin, Love Stream. Your first two are horrible choices, I gotta say. And your fourth choice is a horrible choice. I don't know what YAM is, I'll look it up, but XRP, EOS, and Tron, my opinion, I would not buy those. There's so much better options. Some of the things I'm talking about is way, way better. Where was the one? All right, so another thing I'm gonna share with you guys. Yeah, that was spam. Come on, admit it, that was spam. It's okay. At least you gave a super chat. Another one that I discovered today, and I'm gonna share with you guys. Consider this a gift because I think they're gonna go much higher. Is PancakeSwap. Yes, PancakeSwap, a really silly name, just like SushiSwap, I know, but PancakeSwap is equivalent of SushiSwap and Uniswap, but they're built on the Binance chain, not Ethereum. So people that are frustrated with Uniswap And SushiSwap, because of the high gas price, basically a trade will cost you $30. And if you trade both ways, it's $60 plus. And then you have to wait for confirmation, which is slower. I've said a lot of people are looking for alternatives, right? Turning to DeFi projects that's not on Ethereum. And PancakeSwap is the biggest one on Binance chain right now, and they are exploding because people are looking for alternatives, right? Yes, it's a silly name, but they are back. They got huge funding from Binance, and they're on Binance, which gives them pumpability. So I'm going to share that with you guys because I think that that project is going to be pretty massive in the future. Now, Engine, also people kept asking about Engine. Engine is a great coin. I've already talked about them. What else is there? Yeah, that's pretty much it from page one. There's a few that's much smaller, but I'll just leave it. I'll leave it at page one. Crypto Dynamics asks, what's your thoughts on Curve DAO price prediction this year? The rest of, are you talking about just Curve Finance or Curve DAO? Is that different? Yeah, it's just basically Curve. Curve is interesting. Even though they have been going up, but you can see that this up is market cap up, which means that tokens have been increasing, not so much the price. So the thing about Curve is they're a DEX based on stable coins, which I get. DeFi projects need stable coins. Sometimes you can arbitrage different stable coins because sometimes they're off by a few cents. You could do that. But it's not very exciting because it's stable coins. So people much rather go on, say, Uniswap, SushiSwap, or some other DEX and trade, projects rather than stable coins. That's why I'm neutral on Curve. I'm going to say I'm neutral on Curve. Polka starter. Flipman, I think you asked that a lot of times. I did not actually. I think I'll look at them, right? They're built on Polkadot, I think. I may be wrong about that. I'm going to give you guys a big tip, okay? A big tip. If you're checking out a new project and it's not listed on Binance, it's going to be very hard for that project to pump. I'm just going to tell you that right straight off the bat. I know that doesn't sound fair, but every single project that has pumped up well, that has held, that had insane pumps, every single one was listed on Binance. It's really hard to find a project to pump that is not listed on Binance. So I'm just going to tell you that right off the bat. Decentralized, the way your ideas raise capital. Protocol built for cross-chain token pools and auctions, enabling projects to raise capital on decentralized interoperable. Okay. So basically decentralized version of, what's that? Indiegogo. And what's the other one? Where you could raise funds for your project. Interesting. And it's built on Polkadot, which is interesting. But, yeah, I don't know. There was another project I supported that was exactly the same. It was like a crowd-based funding, but they just like died. So I don't know. This is like a new take on it, I guess. And it's built on Polkadot, but I mean, I'm just neutral on it, I guess. Neutral on it. And the fact that it's not on Binance means it's probably not going to pump anytime soon. So Marco asks, File and BAT. Well, Phil is just Filecoin, right? Yeah, Filecoin, big project. They've been working on decentralized storage for a long time. This is a little concerning that the circuit supply on a max supply, although there's probably a reason for that, right? They're going to generate more as people store more. So that's Filecoin. They're definitely the biggest storage play, but storage play is kind of boring. And storage play for decentralization makes sense, but seems like no one really mastered it. Seems like there's still a lot of issues. So it's just not very exciting at this point. But Filecoin, they had a huge ICO. It took them a long time to come out and finally did. And BAT, Basic Attention Token, created by Brendan Eich, a fantastic guy. He invented Firefox, and he invented JavaScript, right? So very brilliant guy. Brave browser is great. I'm using a Brave browser, but unfortunately his advertisement system is just not doing good, and no one is holding BAT. That's why it's not going up. If people started holding BAT, it would go up, but he hasn't created any real incentive for people to hold BAT, in my opinion. That's why it hasn't been going up. Google Cloud joins EOS as a block producer. Yeah, I'm telling you guys, get off the EOS bandwagon. Get off, get off, get off. That project is going to become the next BitShares. There's a reason why. There's a reason why Dan Larimer left Block 1. Because he realized that this project is unfixable. That is the reason why he left his last two projects. He just didn't want to deal with it. He created something that he realized would be too hard to change, so he just leaving and starting another one. The fundamental problem with EOS is block producers, too little of them, 23, and they have too much power. They're getting rewarded in EOS, which means that the rich is getting richer, and there's collusion, which still happens. Because the block producers, with so much more EOS, they could keep voting in other block producers. And ultimately, there's collusion, and it's not really an open system. Now, Dan already said that early on, that he purposely built it that way because he thinks decentralization can be sacrificed for speed. But now we're seeing other projects prove that it doesn't have to be that way. It could be decentralized and still be fast, right? So I'm telling you, Dan leaving a project, which is like basically nail in the coffin. Look at all the other projects Dan left. Steemit, BitShares, right? And what other one? He had like, I think one other one. Every project he leaves dies pretty fast. Now EOS has a huge bank. Huge bank because they raised such a large ICO. So they'll probably be around for a while. But in terms of innovation and stuff like that, I just don't see it. Because he was definitely the leader. John, UMA, I explained. Because, why did it pump? Well, because people are just pumping it. That's the obvious choice. But what do? They create synthetic tokens for DeFi projects. So, if you wanted to trade a synthetic token of VeChain, you can create it and then you can trade it, right? All these synthetics, like wrapped, things like wrapped Bitcoin or wrapped or whatever, right? All these synthetic tokens that gets created, UMA helps people create that. Are you shilling another project? Is CoinLoan even a project? It is. They are not doing very well right now. Volume is super low. So yeah, I'm not gonna look at this project. Is with the volume this low, they're dead, or you want me to pump them up? So I'm not gonna look at this project. I like the graph. I don't have any graph, but graph helps DeFi companies create very useful APIs for data gathering. So that's very important, right? A lot of projects, they need to get their data out. Even DEXs do, and they hook up to Chainlink very well. So the graph is it's a good project. I do like it, right? And speaking of which, look at the Bitcoin dominance. It's below 61%, right? This is what I'm saying. DeFi is growing. Now, there are going to be pump days, pump weeks, pump months, right? But DeFi is here to stay. That's the point of this video. DeFi, the explosion is real, and it's going to get bigger because ultimately, right, there's going to be more liquidity, more use cases. People are looking for decentralized version of centralized finance. People are going to turn to that, and things are just going to get massive. And even guys like Michael Saylor, who is purchasing Bitcoin like it's out of style. He wants to control it all. Joking, but you know what? He's making his purchases, unfortunately, through Coinbase, a centralized exchange. Imagine in the future, you know what? He's just purchasing on a DEX. He doesn't have to go through a middleman. He doesn't have to worry about Coinbase and all that nonsense, right? Because people can track it. People can tax him on it. There's a lot of things. Well, what if you just did it by yourself on a DEX? No one would know. right? Until he reveals it. So I think this is the next evolution. I'm very, very, very excited about it. Very excited about it. But anyways, Christopher Harvey, you can hold a Bitcoin. There is nothing wrong with holding Bitcoin, but I think you're going to find that as time goes on, you're going to wish you had at least a little bit of DeFi, because it really does help you gain your Bitcoin too. All right, guys, I'm going to let you guys go. That is it for tonight. Overall, Bitcoin is coming right back up, 37.2. So things are pretty good. DeFi is exploding. I have a feeling tomorrow, this weekend, is going to be fantastic. Fantastic. And I'm going to keep my eyes on F2 Pool for you guys in case something changes. All right, thanks for tuning in. Make sure you smash up the like, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any of my future streams. And I do have one tomorrow at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. All right? Take care, guys. Bye-bye.